In the glorious dawn of the 31st millennium, humanity stood at its zenith, united under the banner of the Imperium, led by the godlike emperor of mankind. Our species had conquered the stars. At the forefront of this great crusade were his sons, the Primarch's 20 superhuman generals, each leading a legion of space marine warriors. They were brothers, demigods of war, and architects of a golden age. But this age was not destined to last. A shadow was about to fall, a betrayal so profound it would tear the galaxy asunder and echo for 10,000 years. This is the story of the Horus Heresy, the tale of the son who betrayed his father. At the pinnacle of this grand army stood Horus Lupercal, first among equals, the favored son, the Warmaster. When the emperor decided to return to Terra to work on a secret vital project, he bestowed upon Horus the highest honor. He named him Warmaster, granting him supreme command over all imperial forces. Horus was charismatic, a brilliant strategist, and beloved by his brothers and the legions. He was the perfect choice, the very embodiment of the Imperium's might and vision. For a time under his leadership, the Great Crusade continued its triumphant march across the galaxy, bringing world after world into the light of the Imperium. But the seeds of damnation are often sown in the soil of pride and ambition. As Warmaster, Horus carried an immense burden. The pressures of command were immense, and whispers of doubt began to creep into his mind. He felt the weight of his father's expectations, the jealousy of some of his brothers, and a growing sense of abandonment. Why had the emperor left him to finish the crusade alone? What was this secret project on Terra that was more important than conquering the galaxy? These questions festered, creating a vulnerability that the ancient, malevolent forces of chaos were all too eager to exploit. The turning point came on the moon of Davin. While pacifying a world that had fallen to a vile cult, Horus was struck down by a cursed blade, the anathema. The wound was no ordinary injury. It was steeped in the foul energies of the warp, a poison that technology and medicine could not heal. As Horus lay dying, his legion, the sons of Horus, grew desperate. In their despair, they turned to the local population, who offered a cure through one of their warrior lodges, a place called the Serpent Lodge. Unbeknownst to them, this was a trap laid by the Chaos gods. Inside the lodge, as his body fought the supernatural poison, Horus's spirit was cast adrift in the warp. There, the Chaos gods, the great enemies of humanity, worked their dark magic. They showed him visions of a dark future, a future where the emperor was worshipped as a god, where the imperial truth of science and reason was replaced by superstition and blind faith. They twisted his love for his father into resentment, his pride into arrogance. They showed him a future where his name and his achievements were forgotten, overshadowed by the emperor's apotheosis. They told him the emperor was not creating a brighter future, but a cage, and that he sought to ascend to godhood himself, abandoning his sons. The visions were lies wrapped in half-truths, tailored perfectly to exploit Horus's deepest fears and ambitions. When he finally awoke, he was changed. The noble son was gone, replaced by a vessel of pure distilled ambition and resentment. He believed the emperor had betrayed him, had betrayed them all. He believed the only way to save humanity was to tear down his father's Imperium and forge a new one in his own image. Chaos had found its champion. The Warmaster had turned. The heresy began not with a bang, but with a whisper, a systematic purging of loyalists from the ranks of his own legion and others he could sway. Horus was a master manipulator. He played on the existing rivalries and grievances among his brothers. He drew the proud Fulgrim, the tormented Angren, the melancholic Mortarion, and the cunning Lorgar to his cause. Lorgar, in fact, had been the first to fall to chaos years earlier, and he helped orchestrate Horus's corruption. Together they formed a brotherhood of traitors, a dark mirror of the Primarch's original fraternity. Legions that had once fought side by side to unite the galaxy now prepared to tear it apart. The first great open act of rebellion was the Isstvan III atrocity. Horus gathered several legions, ostensibly to quell a rebellion, but it was a trap. He ordered his fleet to bombard the planet's surface with virus bombs, wiping out the rebellious population and, more importantly, the thousands of loyalist space marines from his own traitor legions who had been sent to the surface. It was a brutal, horrifying statement of intent. There was no turning back. Brother was now pitted against brother. The galaxy-spanning civil war had begun. From Istvan, the conflict exploded across the stars. The drop-site massacre on Istvan V saw 3 entire loyalist legions, the Iron Hands, the Raven Guard, and the Salamanders, ambushed and nearly annihilated by 7 traitor legions. Ferrus Manus, Primarch of the Iron Hands, was slain by his once closest brother, Fulgrim. The galaxy burned. Worlds that had known a century of peace were consumed by war. The dream of the Imperium was turning into a nightmare. Every battle was a tragedy, a clash between warriors who had once called each other brother, fighting over the ashes of their father's dream. While Horus and his forces carved a bloody path towards Terra, the loyalist primarchs rallied. Robut Guilliman of the Ultramarines, the stoic Rogel Dorn of the Imperial Fists, the ferocious Lemon Russ of the Space Wolves, and the angelic Sanguinius of the Blood Angels. They fought desperately to stem the tide, but the traitors had the advantage of surprise and momentum. The warp itself roiled with the conflict, aiding the traitors with demonic legions and sorcerous power, while hindering the loyalists' travel and communication. The journey to Terra, the heart of the Imperium, became a race against time. The ultimate confrontation was the siege of Terra. A battle of such epic scale, it defies comprehension. Billions of soldiers, titans, and legions of space marines clashed on the throne world. The Imperial Palace, a continent-sized fortress designed by the Primarch Rogel Dorn, was besieged by the full might of the traitor forces. For months the defenders held out, a thin wall of gold and gray, against a tide of damnation. They fought with courage and desperation, knowing that if Terra fell, humanity fell with it. Sanguinius, the great angel, led the defense of the Eternity Gate, holding back hordes of demons and traitors in a display of breathtaking heroism. But the defenders' time was running out. Horus, empowered by the 4 Chaos Gods, knew he had to force a final confrontation. In a moment of supreme arrogance and impatience, he lowered the shields on his flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, baiting the Emperor into a final duel. The Emperor saw the gambit for what it was, a trap, but he also saw it was his only chance. He teleported aboard the Vengeful Spirit, accompanied by Sanguinius, Rogel Dorn, and a contingent of elite custodians and terminators. What followed was the stuff of grim, dark legend. The powers of chaos had turned the flagship into a hellscape of shifting realities and demonic horrors. The Loyalists were scattered. Sanguinius was the first to find Horus. He knew he could not defeat the corrupted Warmaster, but his loyalty and love for his father demanded he try. He fought with all his angelic might, but was ultimately struck down and killed by his brother, a sacrifice that would forever stain the honor of the Blood Angels and fuel their sorrow. Finally, the Emperor confronted his fallen son. He found Horus standing over the broken body of Sanguinius. Even then, the Emperor held back, unable to unleash his full power against his most beloved son. He fought a defensive battle, hoping to find a glimmer of the man Horus once was. But there was nothing left. Horus was a puppet of chaos, a monster wearing his son's face. He crippled the Emperor, mortally wounding him. It was only when a lone custodian bravely charged Horus and was obliterated with a mere thought that the Emperor understood. The son he loved was truly dead. With a heavy heart and a psychic scream of grief and power, the Emperor unleashed his full might, annihilating Horus's soul and body, silencing the vessel of chaos forever. The heresy was over, but the cost was unimaginable. The Emperor was a shattered wreck, placed upon the golden throne, an arcane life support machine, to live a death-in-life existence for 10,000 years. The Imperium was broken, its golden age a distant memory. The surviving traitor legions fled into the Eye of Terror, a swirling vortex of warp space, from where they continue to launch their long war against the galaxy. The Horus Heresy is the foundation myth of the 41st millennium. It is the story of how a bright future was stolen, how a perfect sun fell to darkness, and how the galaxy was plunged into an age of endless war. It is a cautionary tale of ambition, pride, and the insidious whispers of chaos. And for 10,000 years, in the grim darkness of the far future, there has only been war. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the lore of Warhammer 40,000, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from this dark and epic universe. Let me know in the comments which part of the heresy you find most tragic. Until next time.